Hello, my name is Mark Roseboom. I'm a high school English teacher in Northern Michigan, and I'm excited to be here today. We're going to have a book discussion about a local Michigan author's book, The Path to the Sun by Kimberli Bindschatel. And it's the first in the Fallen Shadows trilogy. So joining me today in this book discussion is?
I'm Olivia, I'm 14.
I'm Noah, I'm also 14.
I'm Charlie, I'm 15.
I'm Hannah, I'm 16.
All right, well, welcome, crew. A couple of you have your books in hand, but as we know, The Path to the Sun is an epic adventure. Starring in the lead role is Kieran, and he is leaving his village to look for the voice of the Father. And so I guess to start us off, what does the title mean to you, The Path to the Sun?
It's a journey. It's not just a narrow path. The sun is so immensely huge that a narrow path wouldn't let you get there. To get to the sun, you have to be wide. You have to be, I guess, you have to be open to all paths and all opportunities.
Because the sun is everywhere. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, it's kind of never ending because you're basically chasing the horizon. You're chasing something you can't really reach, but you try to do it anyway. It's kind of like the path to knowledge in a way because it's an enlightening, and while we can never actually know everything, we strive for it anyway.
Now, literally, in this journey to the sun, which way is he going, east or west? He's moving towards do you remember?
The setting.
He's moving towards the setting sun. And so it's good to have that sense of direction here throughout this book. He's going one direction. And how about for you, this path to the sun?
I agree with Noah and Olivia. I mean, I think there's a lot of different paths. I mean, there's not just two forks in the road, there's a billion forks in the road. You can go one way one time and then go a different way the next time, and the sun's always there. The sun doesn't change, it's a constant thing, but you can't really reach the sun because, I mean, nobody reaches the sun, so it's a concept that you're always striving for and always taking different opportunities to move through this journey.
Right. And the word path, for me, I think of a narrow path, but this is not an easy journey, is it? It's an epic journey, right?
No.
It's a meandering path to the sun. And well, with that said, the way the story begins, what kind of person do we find our hero to be? Is he a leader right from the start?
No. Oh no.
Very submissive.
He's very he's very not apathetic, but he lets other people basically create his path. He believes he has this path set before him where he's going to become a Tauren because he wants to be accepted, like a true Tauren, you know, and
he's not a true Tauren.
yeah, because he's the orphan
son.
Right. He's an orphan.
and but he believes he has this path where he wants to be accepted by his fellow villagers, men, you know.
Now, at the very beginning, he's being dared to do something. What is that?
Jump
Off the cliff.
Jump off a cliff. Okay.
Don't try this at home.
I think that really shows. I mean, he really wants to be accepted.
Okay, so our protagonist at this point really isn't much of a hero. He's got a long journey ahead of him, and he doesn't even realize that at this point. And so, also in the beginning, we get to meet a major antagonist in this story by the name of Deke. And Deke is the one actually daring him to jump. This leap of faith off a cliff is going to lead him where? Do we know?
Well, we can assume
know.
the bottom. And
We don't have
he's
a
dead.
specific destination at that point in the story, but we assume it's not a great destination.
Deke is saying, what are you afraid of?
Yeah,
Because
because the Father will catch you.
Exactly.
Obviously.
the
I
Father
think
will catch you.
it's kind of like a good, almost like a representation of the whole rest of this story. Like he has doubts about the Father, And his whole journey almost is a leap of faith. Like he doesn't know if he'll live or not. And as a Tauran, he's supposed to believe like the Father will see him through, but he just doesn't know. It doesn't make sense to him.
Right, it doesn't make any sense. What's interesting to me is the village hears the bells and it calls them to the temple. And they're all gathering, and he's not allowed to enter the temple because he's not a Tauran. And speaking of not making sense, who is the guide that finds a back way to be able to listen into the ceremony that goes on?
Old Horan, right?
Yeah,
Is his
Old
name?
Horan.
The crazy guy, who's shunned by the entire village.
I thought it was kind of humorous. I could imagine
Yeah.
this crazy, babbling fool. Did you sense any wisdom at all with this guy?
I sense more,
Hated.
not exactly wisdom in a sense that a great scholar would be wisdom.
Like Aldwin is
Yeah.
wisdom.
It was
you
more
kinda
like
think him?
a sense of he's learned to survive in this kind of community without having to succumb to its ways. So it wasn't like a scholarly wisdom like you said, but it was kind of like a sharp wit about him.
Like an experience.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot that's happened to him, so he's gained wisdom from that, though he's probably not a very learned person.
I feel like he has wisdom more in the sense of I believe it's called like horse sense. Like he just kind of can see through things. Like he kind of just knows how things are.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, he's prophetic, and he mentioned something about danger, and only one will return. And there's a sense that he knows that something's going to happen. He knows certainly before Kieran knows, but even before the elders announce what's going to happen, he knows. And so I get the sense that he's been peeking through that crack for quite a while. I'm going to go ahead and read an introductory section here where the village is afraid of Javinians. They're coming to attack their village. They don't know when that's going to happen. There's great danger and fear, and they need hope. And so they call out 7 names, 7 young people. And to everyone's surprise and shock, Kieran, who's considered to be an outsider, is one of the named. And so they're all gathered together now, and Aldwin addresses the pilgrims. He says, "Together you shall bear the voice of the Father with humility and dignity, for our fate is in your keeping. Make haste in your preparations, time is of the essence. In 1 week's time you shall go forth with diligent prayer. We will await your safe return with the blessings of the great, all-powerful Father." What happens next?
Well, it's a day or a couple days after the entire thing is, and the thing they've all been fearing, the Javinians attack.
The Javinians attack.
And Aldwin, Kieran's mentor, who
Raised him.
Yes,
Yeah.
father figure, is sends him out, and they're bringing all the called names to just meet, and they have to go now.
Because they can't afford the Javinians to kill any of these chosen youths. So they're like, oh, you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah?
He sends a scroll with him as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the scroll to help guide him.
Okay, and that's
It's a
key. That
classic
scroll is very key.
Yeah.
Mentor, student
Do you
meeting.
remember the name of the scroll?
No, I don't.
The scroll
That's
of
escaping me.
check.
it was prophecy or something.
That was the one they didn't have their hands
That was the
on.
one that- yeah.
Scroll of the Legends.
Oh, I was the
Scroll of
only deacon.
Right. Okay, so the story's kicked off now. We're now on this epic path. There's a lot of fear everywhere we look. I think we should probably start delving into symbolism and meaning. What do they come across on this path that strikes fear in their heart? And how do they work their way through it as they're wondering, what is this voice of the Father that we seek? What
Well-
scenes stand out for you?
Well, I think the scene that kind of kicks everything off, that Kieran and the rest of his Tauran allies they have a really narrow mindset, is when they encounter the Moguls,
Right.
which are they're the demons of the night. But I mean, through the way that the author describes them,
Right.
you begin to realize that they're not really demons or bringers of death.
At all.
Yeah, they're bats.
They're bats.
Bats.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
The Mongols, wasn't that where
I think
they eat people from the ground?
That was.
I think they were
the hunter trap that Bao
The hunter traps.
fell into.
and
Although
then I think they
did
describe
believe
they
the
describe
bats and
both
other
as Mongols. I think.
animals were.
Well, they really
like,
didn't know what
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
So I think anything at this time could be a Mongol. They just know it's something to be terribly afraid of.
Yeah.
Right, that's true.
Because it's the unknown. They've never encountered these things, and we automatically fear the unknown.
And they were taught to have this fear
Yeah.
of the unknown. And only later they discover it's something else altogether. What else? What other fears do they have?
They were definitely afraid of the savages.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were several savages in the story, several savage tribes. There was
Really, anyone that was
like,
different from them.
slave
anything else.
driver.
That's especially shown through Deke, because
Yeah.
he's the one who's almost always against other
New.
things and new people.
Remind us.
Whether good or
very
bad.
set in his ways.
Deke, he's the jerk.
antagonist.
He's the
mostly.
jerk.
He's the jerk,
He's the antagonist.
who you don't like
mostly.
until right before he dies.
And then you still don't really like him.
I
But
don't
yeah,
like
he
him.
still kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth.
Yeah, well, he's also the son of the
The-
elder Morgan, so he's like,
the main elder.
He has a
Yeah.
real
He's
Daddy's
sense of
boy.
entitlement
yeah,
around
he's
him.
like the senator's son, who
Like a prince.
is a jerk
you
to
know?
everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
He thinks he's better.
Yeah.
Thinks it's
Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
I will say though, I did feel a little sorry for Deke towards the end. But
Yeah.
that's just me. The way he dies. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Well,
The
yeah.
way he dies.
Big spoiler alert.
His death really
But
kind of shocked me. Like I wasn't expecting that, because I mean the whole time like Deke, Deke, you know, he was like son of the elder. He like was the, you know, no one was really too surprised when he got sent on this journey. But then he dies. I mean, it's like a very
You would think that you'd
embarrassing
maintain your
death.
main villain all the way to the end.
it's almost ironic though, because the I believe the sickness that he had was gained from drinking the water,
Yeah.
and he insisted on drinking the water because of his blind faith, his devout faith. When
Blind
the
faith.
the
Didn't
scroll
the
said,
scroll tell
"Drink
him to-
of the river and be merry," so he
Yeah.
did, and he took it so literally, and that eventually led to his downfall.
Yeah.
Right. Right. He's a true believer. In some ways, I respected him for that.
Oh yeah,
It's a lot of
and
perseverance. You have to be really
Perseverance?
Perseverance.
Right.
Perseverance. You have to be really committed to that extent. I mean,
we're dumb.
or yeah, his entire life has been this.
Well, I mean, not drinking the water.
Right. Right.
There's a difference between
Drinking the
faith and blind faith, and I mean, he was definitely a kind of blind faith believer.
I think when you're like that scroll, it went against reason because the water was, you know, no one else drank it, so clearly he was the one person who did drink it. So he was kind of by himself there. So I think when your reason goes against what you're told, one of those two things has to be wrong. So I think Deke just chose the wrong one because he was raised to be just always believe in his faith no matter what.
So sometimes there's a consequence for standing up for what you believe, and it could turn out to be wrong. Right. So how about your favorite character? Because we have 7 people on the
Oh,
journey.
gosh.
I got one. Ro, loved him so much.
Ro.
I loved Ro.
R-O-H, Ro.
Ro.
Who is Ro? Why do you love Ro?
He's basically, in a way, Kieran is almost Ro's sidekick. He's very calm. He's very level-headed.
Rose, not Kieran.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And he's almost an outcast as well because of this
What kind of is?
past with his father. And so he's shunned, especially by Deke, and he's
So he's
often
not really
the one
supposed to be
who-
on this journey either.
No.
No.
At least according to Deke.
But Kieran still has a little bit more of a, at least in the beginning, like he almost thinks he should be on the journey more than Ro as well, I think, in the beginning. Was a
Because,
little
I mean,
bit
Because
that.
Ro tries to blend into the background, and then he really emerges more as the leader. Like he's very he kind of backs off at first. Like he lets Deke do his thing and speaks up when he really needs to, when he knows that Deke's gonna,
And then-
lead everyone to ruin.
And then when he realizes that, and then when Ro realizes Deke's an idiot, then
Yeah.
He is.
then
yes.
I think everybody knew that.
The
Ro-
idiot we love to hate.
yeah, and then Ro just takes over. Ro realizes that, I mean, I can't just sit back and listen. I have to take charge, or nobody else is going
Or else
to.
we're dying if we keep on following.
I kept
Deke,
waiting
so.
for a battle, just a head-on
Yeah.
fist fight or something. It never happened, but I was.
It got
I
It,
think
it
was
need to
scared.
happen.
They got
Yeah.
close.
The
They really didn't need
anticlimax,
to.
I think the anticlimax there really showed just like the what they were dealing with.
Yeah,
Well, I
they couldn't afford to.
Well,
do
I think
that.
the reason that they never really clashed like that, I think Deke was afraid of Ro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
So
yeah.
there was
Yeah,
definitely
big like
you could really hurt me.
He's kinda
I'm
like a
not gonna
coward.
go against you.
coward hiding behind his dad's reputation.
Yeah.
I saw Ro's skepticism as a sort of faith, a faith that matched the level of Deke's faith, and I think they were well matched. How about love interests?
Wow.
Bria.
Yeah, Kieran.
Yeah,
Kieran is a real
two ladies
romantic.
on the quest.
Yeah.
Kale's like
Bria's the
Kale,
romantic.
but, no, Kieran is because
Oh,
he
Kieran
just
is.
he adores Bria,
Oh,
which is very rare
Then we
in
have
teenage
Jandon.
boys. Like I don't know, to just be so. Maybe I have a misconception. I don't know with you two, but
Not a
more
teenage boy.
like
personal.
are teenage boys really that?
Oh, they can have a
Interesting.
crush.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It happens. Believe me, it happens.
It's a bit of a dance, though,
It's
because
because Bria doesn't want to be tied down.
She doesn't want to be married.
She's very
Yeah,
independent.
she
independent streak.
she wants to be an elder. She wants to be the seventh elder of the prophecy, and
She's not afraid to let people know.
and she feels that with Kieran that I feel that Bria really does feel for Kieran, and they feel for each other, but Bria is not ready to let go of who she has been for her.
Well, later she reveals that he doesn't even know himself yet. And so she has the maturity to see that and not let the relationship happen completely yet. How about the other female character?
Kale.
I never really saw
Interesting
her
scenario.
as a love interest, but as a character, I thought she was very interesting.
And then,
There's a lot of sides to her.
Her key role, I think she's fully formed in the scene with the Guardian and his people. How do you say the name of the group? The colony, the cult,
The Kotari.
the Qatari.
Qatari.
That's
Qatari.
right. Did that scene freak you out?
yeah, it was.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, what have you done with our character?
I mean, it's,
Grown to actually like, and now she's gone.
You liked her before? I mean, I enjoyed her character. I don't know if I had a
thought she was
particular-
weak, but the way
been played.
Kieran was
She
willing
was whiny.
yeah, the way Kieran was willing to reach out to her, I've done that personally myself, where there are people who I can tell aren't as good with people or aren't as used to certain situations, so I do my best to reach out to them. So I kind of related to her because.
What was the point of that scene? The kind of people that were drawn into this colony, this cult.
I think it's
The-
the weak trying to find their strength. They don't really find it in the right place because it's under a different sort of strength. But I mean, that was a kind of scene where I respected her because she did try and find her strength, even though it was,
In the wrong place.
yeah. But that, because she had been a very weak character up
Yeah.
to that point, so being able to find a certain kind of strength, that was the part where I admired her, even though she was taken in by this cult.
That's the danger of things like that. Because
Right.
the types of things that appeal to like weak people like that is one, things that are actually good for weak people like that, the things they actually need, or two, things that are traps to lure them into something for someone else's pleasure or gain.
Right. So we can think negatively of those who might be weak-minded, but we have to consider that they're being victimized too. Did you feel that this book was anti-religion
No.
or pro-faith?
I think it was
It,
it was the blind faith that it was more opposed to, I
Yeah.
think. I mean, I don't think it was taking a stand on organized religion or anything like that.
versus
But
anything else. It was
Yeah.
more.
I think in a like a broader sense, I think it's just more about religion was kind. This is just my opinion, but I think it's more of a way to using religion to look at knowledge, like the kind of thing is a quest for knowledge, like knowing. That's the thing about blind faith is you don't have any proof. You're just told to believe, but the whole quest is kind of for knowledge, like because Kieran doubts and he wants knowledge about this, and it's kind of it's almost an internal conflict between blind. He's supposed to have blind faith, but he wants knowledge. So,
But it's a balance of gathering facts and also following your heart.
Yeah.
And of course, both happens along the journey, along this epic journey.
And as he sees more and more stuff that he's been told don't exist or that's bad, and they just turn out fine, he begins to, he doubts even more.
Right, right. Can you speak more, maybe an example of how he begins to realize that cultures that he used to be afraid of?
Especially with the Lendi tribe.
Right.
In the very beginning.
Are those
The
the
first.
headhunters?
No. Lendi are the first group that they meet that are
Like
Is that with
like a
the-
Native American
Yeah.
tribe.
Right.
with the
with the
Manumatu.
pipe
Mano Matu.
that they is that the pipe?
The
that
pipe.
They,
Yeah.
dream pipe.
The dream pipe.
Right.
The
yeah.
dream pipe.
The dream pipe. Let's everyone say it together. No. So talk more about that. Because there's certainly nothing like the Turan people that he grew up with.
Like there's no really it's different from the Taurans in that the Taurans, their entire life, they're very similar in that both their lives are centered around the religion.
Yeah.
But in the way that they differ is when there's the Taurans are very strict. There are set guidelines. You have to do this. You can't do this.
Right.
But with the Lendi, it's more they've adapted. I feel like with the Taurans, they've adapted the environment with the religion.
Right.
With the Lendi, I feel that they've adapted their religion with their environment.
Right. So yeah, I remember in that situation, you begin to get the sense that the voice of the Father is not a goal, but it's a voice that's ever present. And throughout the journey, he runs into various cultures who find that to be so within nature, even with the headhunters.
Yeah.
What did he learn from the headhunters regarding lessons in nature that can help his journey?
The plants.
Yes, that's what I was looking for.
The plants. Yep.
What about the plants?
Well, they're traveling down the river, the dark river, and they're running out of food, and they won't drink from the river because of Mano's warning that they'll anger the sea goddess,
Right.
the river goddess,
And it
Yeah.
killed Deke.
and it did eventually kill Deke. At least that's what we're led to believe.
Right.
And so they stop at the headhunter. Well, they don't know they're headhunter. Well, they kind of do because there's
With the sharpened teeth
yeah the sharpened
Yeah.
teeth,
and
and
heads on stakes.
Bit of a
That-
giveaway there.
That little
Yeah.
hint.
but then with everything seen, like there are edible nuts.
Mm-hmm.
There are nuts that they've seen along the path by the fire that that shows they're eatable. They're edible, or else
Right.
the headhunters who are in this territory wouldn't. They've been in it probably a long time. So
Longer than they have, for sure.
yeah, at least longer than they have.
Well, he rescues one of them, Buku,
Yeah.
and Buku's the one who teaches them the way of surviving out there. And I think it was a good moment for him to realize we can learn from even our worst, scariest enemies. And throughout the story, I kept thinking, this is going to be not just an epic adventure, but a magical adventure. And in many ways, the author wrote it to make it feel like anything could happen. Is it a magical adventure?
No, because everything that happens in it is based on things that can actually happen in the real life, and
Somewhat.
really we feel like it is magical because Kieran does, and we have this filter. We see through this filter that he has that these supernatural things exist when they in reality don't. So he labels them as these weird magical occurrences when they're really natural.
Well, I think it's like mythology where people had a lack of knowledge, so they made up these things to explain it, where they just had a lack of science and knowledge, so they just made stuff up, and that explained it away, and nobody had to question anymore.
Like the tornado demon.
Yeah.
Did you know immediately it was a tornado?
Yeah.
Or were you caught up in
Yeah.
the fear
Yeah.
at first?
I think I read it twice.
Yeah, I went back and reread that because I was like, oh, Kieran, you're silly.
I'm thinking this demon spirit is clouding up the sky and it's closing
Yeah.
in. They better run for their lives.
And
And
then
then you're like, wait a minute.
Wait
Let's
a
take a
minute
step
here.
back.
Something's wrong.
I know better.
and then with especially when the eye passes over them,
The eye of
the tornado. Well,
the
yeah,
storm,
Yeah.
the eye of the
right?
storm, and it's all
Right.
calm,
Right.
and then it happens again.
Good. Let's go ahead and jump to the end a minute, and we can go back and explore other features too, because the end echoes the beginning of the story. And when did you realize that he was circumferencing the Earth, that he was navigating in a circular direction and not a flat Earth situation, and coming full circle?
You know, I really didn't. I
Yeah.
maybe had my internal suspicions, but I really didn't get it until that moment where they fished him out, and this is where he was right back where he started. So I mean, it didn't really click for me, of course, until it was explained.
Yeah.
But because I mean, it's not a magical world, but I still maybe assumed it was still a different kind of world where there was the flat world kind of thing. So
Still looking for the magic. We want to believe in the magic.
I was totally taken off guard with that. I mean, it was kind of like one of those of course moments
it was
where
a good blindside.
yeah, it really was
It was.
because it makes perfect sense. You just didn't see it coming.
When he sees the X etched,
Yeah.
that's when it clicked. I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I
oh,
didn't think about that at
we're
all.
back where we started.
like before.
Is he back where he started, though?
Physically,
As a person?
yeah,
No,
no,
he's-
not as a person.
He's made bounds. Like just as the thing said, I really loved how that happened. They said you'll find the voice of the father, like crippled with wisdom, and he looks in the pool and sees himself so changed. And I think that really showed me like, wow, he really has made such advancements as a person. He has gained so much wisdom.
Because he starts off as insecure, humble, not so much a leader, really.
No, he's
Follower.
not very confident in himself.
He wants to prove himself.
Does he ever? Does he ever
I
rise?
think
He
through his
proves it to
actions.
himself. I don't know if he's. I suppose in a certain way he proved himself to his torn fellowmen, but not in the way that he would want to be proved now that he has changed. I think before he would have been perfectly happy with the way they treated him at the end, but I think now that all the changes that he's gone through, he wants them to see what he's seen, and he wants them to know that you can't treat me like this great hero because look at everything I've done. Look at what you're revering as a hero when this is what defines a hero, and this is just what I've been through. I haven't met your standards. I've met someone else's standards. I've met my own standards.
I think maybe instead of like proving himself to himself, he's realized that he doesn't need to prove himself to anyone. He's kind of gone beyond that.
Because like with Ro, I think he saw Kieran's potential even before Kieran did, and I think it's the same with Rhea. But then with characters like Deke, he wanted to like reject Rowan's, Kieran's growth.
And I feel the first time that we got that sense of leadership was when they're on the river and Kieran starts instructing people. Like he tells them, okay, Ro, you go find food, Bria, you go get water, and then just the little line with Ro smiled, or just something like Ro acknowledged that Kieran has changed.
Because to be a leader, you need people who are willing to follow, and that's what's beginning to happen. It takes Bria, though, to point that out to him, that he really is a hero.
Yeah.
And do you remember where that happens?
Isn't that near the end before he leaves on his own?
The tree colony
Yeah.
Tree forest.
with Aurora,
Tree forest.
the tree forests.
Tree
Yes.
forests. Yeah.
What did you? For me, I was completely expecting perhaps a wedding to take place between Bria and our hero. It didn't happen. Did that bother you at all? How did you receive that scene?
That didn't bother me, mostly because given their age, they're around
Well,
14 or 15.
no,
No?
they're
No.
like 17.
I assume
16, 17.
16, 17. I don't know. I didn't see them.
And then
getting
again,
married that
it is a
fast.
different culture.
Yeah.
It is it definitely would have fit. I didn't personally see
I
it.
didn't
Probably
think it
because
would
Because
fit,
she
'cause I
seemed like
think
she
different.
really, really wanted to
I think
I think she was
be
still-
married. Like the whole scene with the lily opening up and
Yeah.
receiving the
Yeah.
beetles, and the romance that blossomed around that ceremony. And they even said to each other that they loved each other deeply.
I think like the ceremony was missing, but their hearts were there. Like that, the ceremony is all it needed to be. Like the last brick put into a building. Like that's like they kind of know it in their hearts that they need to do that. But I think they both acknowledge that there's something better that has to be done for the well, not better, but something more important that needs to be done for their people,
It
not
was
just
more
for
like
them.
a promise or an engagement. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
once
Yeah,
everything
engagement.
fits together, once everything's made right, then we'll come back and we'll do what needs to be done with
Yeah.
each other.
It was almost like a guarantee that they'll see each other again because you don't really know because they're going to be so far apart
Yeah.
whether they will. But with this promise, it's like, okay, now that we know we love each other, we have to see each other again. Like
They're
no
gonna make
matter
it
what,
happen.
we will see each other again.
Is yet another example of them adapting or accepting a different culture's view on marriage and commitment. And I'm sure the Torans would probably have been
Appalled.
wouldn't
shocked.
acknowledge-
Yeah,
Yes.
like what?
What's this have to do with getting married?
It doesn't count to them.
Burying two dolls that are tied together in the ground.
Just it's so showy, I guess, but it's not. It's showy. Kind of has a negative connotation in that.
Yeah.
It's not showy. It's well,
How would you
It's
word
kind of
that?
like having an elaborate wedding now where it's just
Yeah.
like you're just showing your love through this ceremony where it's just where in the Toran mind it is flashy and showing and necessary,
And
but in a different culture it's just like this is how much we love each other that they're willing to show
expose
it.
that.
Yeah.
I think the Toran viewpoint on that is another example of their blind faith, because I mean, if you don't have any reason to believe in what you believe, then it's hard for you to find a reason to believe or accept what other people believe. So I mean, since they think what they believe is right without a reason, so it'll be difficult for them to accept what other people believe without a reason, and even with a reason, they're so set in their own ways, it'll be difficult for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Can you bring it around to 21st century today, modern world? I don't know about you, but I'm a wired person. I'm completely tuned into
Oh yeah.
iPhones and iPads, the internet. And even though we live in northern Michigan that's known for its nature and outdoor sports, what does this book have to say to people in the modern era who are stuck with technology all the time?
Don't lose sight of what's important because this is really a journey that brings these people together and sometimes splits them apart, but that's what happens in life. So you really have to make sure you appreciate the world that's around you and the people that are in it.
For finding purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of exposes the false barrier that we have. Like, with all the technology, it is a barrier through the real world. And I think you can connect with people through technology in a false sense of a way. I think you can, connect in a real sense, but I think there's a lot of false connections that can be made where you really need to kind of find your own sort of path and delve into your own self. And if you're always connected to these barriers, then you're not going to be able to tell your true self, and you might have to have split up from this person, but you're not going to do it because of our technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to overcome a barrier when you don't know it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got to learn to stop and smell the roses.
Yeah, literally, stop and smell the roses, right. And I noticed that throughout the book there was this thread of looking to nature for meaning, looking to nature to recognize the voice of the Father leading you. I know in the beginning he wondered out loud about what if the Father is looking at us right now through the eyes of the squirrel.
Yeah.
That was my first clue. Is like, ooh, okay, I see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the story, other clues where nature is a part of our existence.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to recognize it for it to be meaningful.
Oh, yeah.
So, did you want to add to that at all?
I mean, it's
I think the Father's a bit quite vague in this. Like, even in religions that we have today, all the gods of those religions are given characteristics. All we know about the Father is these people worship him for some reason, and he has a voice, but apparently they have to go on a journey to hear it.
Yeah.
So
We don't even know if he's like an all-powerful, all-knowing kind of God. He's just,
or is he like
it's
a
important.
like a
Greek mythology type of god?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because they have to travel to tell him something,
Mm-hmm.
so he's almost separated from them as well.
and then they don't even get there. They just go back to where they started.
Yeah.
And then
Well, ultimately, he makes his way back. He makes his way to the city by the sea, and I was thinking like, okay, he's going to go to a celestial city, and everything's made of pearls and gold, and beautiful. The Emerald City, perhaps.
Yeah.
And instead, what does he find, and what does it mean?
It's kind of like a city, just a normal city,
it's
really.
a mix
Yeah.
of everybody.
There's no one true father that they all follow. It's just sort of a bunch of people living their lives, living these tough lives without a whole lot of guidance, but still, I think they're probably a little bit happier, and I think some are a little bit sadder.
Mm-hmm.
Just regular people.
Yeah.
Just regular life.
I mean, it's probably a really good mix of people who do believe in a God and those who don't, or those who just
Don't
want to
care.
live. Yeah, they just want to live their lives.
So he runs into Arturus,
Artists.
Artis,
Artists.
and he's asking for direction to the oracle.
Mm-hmm.
And Artis's response is,
Though. Isn't it like, why do you want to go
Yeah.
there?
Why?
Yeah.
and Artis
What's so
takes
great
him
about
under
the
his
oracle?
wing. And why is Artis concerned about Kieran in this environment?
'Cause he's a friendly guy, for one thing. He's very agreeable. He gets along with people, so.
And
I think he
She's-
thinks Kieran's a little naive. Like,
Kind of
this is the
just
real
some punk
world.
kid.
You can't keep chasing this idea of what you think your God is. You have to understand that real life is hard, and there's no God to answer for your problems or to solve your problems.
And this is interesting that he's naive, even through this whole epic, crazy, dangerous adventure. You get to the end of the book, and he's still fairly ignorant of the way things really are in life.
Well, because everyone he's met along the way has a God as well.
Mhm.
I mean, he's never met, for all the people that he has met, he hasn't met a society with no one God or no one religion. He's just meeting regular people, and he hasn't done that. He's met groups of people with one defining characteristic, which is often their religion, and this is the first real society he's come into, so he's still naive to this part of the world.
Like there's one tribe, one religion, one society and culture, you know.
An isolated
Mhm.
culture.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't a sense of the religious other than those going to fortune tellers. There is a wise old man with a wrinkly face. And what's he have to do with changing everything?
Gives him knowledge.
Knowledge.
For the first time, really.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, all this time it's been, oh yeah, here, we believe this, we believe this, we believe this, and then the Y man says, we know this.
It kind of,
It's an interesting idea.
the conflict between his reason and his faith kind of reaches a climax at this point, thanks to the knowledge given to him was the tipping point. Because I mean, the rest was just observations by him. He's kind of thinking like, I don't really know anything. Like I don't know if the Father's real. I don't know this. I don't know that. So maybe even his own observations might not drive him over the edge. But when he's presented by some like real like hard facts, he realizes like either
Starting with, the world is not flat, the world is round. Next question.
Yeah.
Whoa, hang on, what?
So,
Yeah, it's kind of like, because this entire book, Kieran's just asking, why is it like this? Why is it like this? You know, he's questioning, and then the scholar finally gives him some answers, which actually add up to more questions in the end, and some questions that can't be answered by the scholar,
The more you
and
know,
can only
the
be
more
answered
you know, the
by
less you
Kieran.
know.
The scholar doesn't even know exactly, but he surmises. And what is his best guess that the voice of the Father actually is?
Memory.
we have a book.
I can check.
Well,
I don't remember.
he mentions the, I'm not sure about the pronunciation, Piletar? Is it the Piletar? That
yeah.
pyramid
The
with a
Piletar?
sphere. What's
The
that?
Pilator?
Pilator?
That's how I pronounced it. How did you guys?
We can go with
sounds
Pilator.
Filter.
And the idea that symbol actually connected to the temples. And so in
like the
each,
salt trading points.
yes,
Yeah.
and in each village, they have 6 elders there, and the 7th would be the
Traveling.
messenger.
Yeah.
And so the Turanian people, they're waiting for the 7th messenger to arrive with news, whatever
Yeah.
that news is.
And then it's revealed to at the end that, I mean, all the people know is what the elders have told them. Like there's not
That's
really
all they know.
there's not really old people in the village who have been from the time that Torrance first got there.
And they've neglected to like write down their history. Another big component of like blind faith, or not component, I guess, kind of goes hand in hand with it. Like accept what you believe without reason. Don't remember the past.
It's like the phrase, the victors write the history books.
Yeah.
It's the Torrans the elders specifically, who
They have the power. They decide what the people learn.
And you're never allowed to question.
yeah.
Ever.
Ever.
And if you don't know your history, you're destined to
Repeat it.
Repeat it.
repeat it. How does the book end?
He speaks, and they heard the voice of the Father.
Doesn't he open up the codex?
The codex.
Yes, and he
His-
basically just tells them the story,
journey.
the path to the sun.
Okay, so where do I begin?
Yeah.
Page
And
1.
then page 1.
Did that ending work for you?
It-
Yes and no.
It took me totally off guard, and at first I did not know that this was part of a trilogy and that there was going to be a sequel. So I was kind of angry at first, like that is not good enough.
Yeah, to be.
But then I found out that there was a sequel, so then I realized, oh, this is actually a great ending for the first book of a continuation.
I had the same reaction. I
yeah.
didn't think it was a good final ending, but with more to come, it's it's a better.
Because it gives you a sense of closure while you still have questions that are unanswered.
And the voice of the Father, I mean, that's what, it's funny because that's what Kieran's been seeking, and since he's the voice of the Father,
He's the seventh elder, the
He's-
seventh messenger.
he's been seeking himself, which is the message of the book.
Dun dun dun. I to be honest, when I first read the ending, I hated it because, I mean, I didn't realize it was a trilogy, so it left me with so many unanswered questions. Like, I thought he just went on this journey. He realized like his religion's wrong, and he spoke the voice of the Father. But then, you know, as I started to realize, also with that it's a trilogy, I kind of realized like these turns into good questions, like a less of a hate, more just of a I want to know.
Yeah.
Like,
So I think the
well, and
message is here. It's a good thing it's a trilogy.
Yeah.
and the
Well-
thing, sorry, it didn't say he's. You mind if I open the book?
Oh,
It
go
says,
ahead. Yeah, you got to keep in mind too, the Javinians, their hated enemy at their border. It turns out that
Or
yes,
Elder Javin,
Javin, right?
Javin, who was an elder, and he spoke out against
He came back to tell them
Mm-hmm.
the truth.
the truth, and
It made him an outcast.
Mhm.
And so he finds himself in the position of, do I become the next Javinian? And what's his conclusion? Does he tell the truth, or does he?
He tells what he saw.
Yeah.
yeah,
He tells his story. So he is telling the truth. But I think it's in a
it's a very
different
cautious.
manner. Yeah.
Yeah, if I if I
Yes,
may say,
yeah, go ahead.
if I may say at the ending, it says, "And the people heard the voice of the Father," which is a lot different than he spoke the voice of the Father, because it's the people's impression of him. It's kind of like the realization, the people still believe, you know, in the seventh elder coming. So the people heard the voice of the Father, but what he's just reading really is his travels. So he's just kind of speaking from what he knows, and the people hear the voice of the Father.
I got the sense that he was at the same time wanting to bring new information, but still respect the
Yeah.
traditions
Yeah.
Yeah.
of the people. Because how can you reach them otherwise?
You can't just come in and change everything, say like this is all wrong. It's not going to work.
No one would
'Cause-
believe him because he's going against everything they've ever believed in. So, if you attack someone, they're going to get defensive. And if he just comes in there like, all right, the way you've been doing is wrong. Let me just lay down the new law. Here's what we're going to do from here on out. And you've got to believe me because I went and saw this stuff. But at the same time, he left an outcast, someone they didn't really care for anyways. So if he came back and told them all this new stuff, they're going to brush it off because, well, he was an outcast to begin with. Why do we have to believe him now?
But then again, there is the whole thing where if they still are blind faith, they still have blind faith, then he's the seventh elder, he's the voice of the Father. No, well, he is the seventh elder, and
Bringing
He's
the voice of the
bringing.
Father.
yeah, his word is what the Father has told him.
Let's project ahead. Where do you think the story might go?
Oh.
It's gonna be a big I think there's gonna be a conflict as Kieran tries to bring in the fact and truth into the his religion.
There's to be a restructuring of the way that things work, I feel. But then again, it's just so much to consider, and I feel Kieran can't do it alone.
Maybe he won't do it alone if he marries Bria.
But
I think
Bria's
Bria was
far
happy where
away.
she was. I think she
Yeah.
realized she didn't need to be an elder to prove herself.
I think
she was
I'd
happy.
like to see like the story, the continuation of the story, but from someone else's perspective. Because now we have Kieran here at the village, and he's going to try and slowly change the people. But
He's reached his objective.
yeah. So now we need someone else who still needs to continue on and go on their own journey.
I don't
Like,
think his journey's over.
It's
per
not
se,
over,
but
but
He's
There's
accomplished
definitely-
what he set out to do.
Well, there are several prophecies throughout the book that they publish for you, so you can see, have a sense of the manuscript that they're reading from. and it talks about the sun rising and the sun setting, and it keeps going. So I think you're probably right. The sun's going to rise and set in some other way for another person.
I'm interested to see how all, because I mean we have so many characters still left to see what happens with them. Like Kale left with the cult, Bria and Jandon left in the village.
Tree people.
What did I say?
Treehouse.
The village.
The village. I honestly said
The
village.
village.
Village people.
So new characters.
Yeah, and actually, just from a storytelling perspective, I really don't think it will be from Kieran's point of view, because his journey isn't over, but he's staying in one place, and this is a book about
A
traveling
An
and
adventure.
going to many different places. So it'd seem a bit off if you just stayed in one place for an entire book after all of this new traveling and new worlds.
Yeah, right. So I was wondering too how Aldwin fit into all this, because I got the impression that Aldwin, he knew, perhaps knew too much and didn't have the fortitude to reveal that.
Yeah.
And maybe he was hoping to live it through
Kieran.
the next
Kieran.
generation.
Another.
And his-
A little side note, are they related?
Yes.
No,
Well,
not by blood. Not by blood.
Kieran and Aldwin.
Kieran.
Remember at the very end,
That's right. When
Oh,
we,
yeah.
that
It's-
story. Yeah.
Kalindra,
Mhm.
Kalindra or
Calindria?
something like that. And it's
And that's his mother?
mhm.
That's what I was thinking.
And
So,
I think it's even explicitly referred to
yeah. So Alden, who we thought was like his foster father,
is actually his father.
Because she's a
Yeah.
She's
his
a
mother is a
Javinian.
Javinian, and they were forced to not be together. So yeah, so maybe we'll find out more about that.
And then he comes back and
Alden.
correct me if I'm wrong here, but Aldwin has had a stroke. That was him.
That's
Yeah.
how I got it.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of
Right.
big. Like he realizes this is his dad. He's probably like excited. Like I know he's my dad. I can like talk to him like father-son time. But then he has a stroke. That's gonna be. Yeah, I hope
Can't
that's
really
elaborated
communicate
more.
much
Well,
anymore.
the book does end with a fresh villain there, Elder Morgan.
Elder
Mm-hmm.
Morgan.
So he's in the back disapproving. So
Mm-hmm.
'Cause somehow I have a feeling that whereas for the general part, our antagonist was Deke as far as characters go. But personally, I did start liking him right at the end of his life, which was a really bad time to start liking him.
I didn't.
But I have a feeling that Elder Morgan is not.
He's
He's
bitter
gonna-
over
he's
his
not
son's
going to
death.
be that.
He's not gonna. He's not gonna be likable at his death. if
regime
he
change
does die.
doesn't come easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially since he's a grown man.
Yeah.
I mean, Deke, he's still
teach an old dog
he's
new
still
tricks.
And the other
growing
elders.
up, and the other elders.
Deke and Morgan really emphasize like father, like son. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Morgan kind of is that grown-up image of Deke. I mean, like Deke hiding behind his dad's reputation, Morgan hiding behind his own reputation. Is kind of using that like a bully
Yeah.
to kind of bully Kieran.
Great. All right. So if you have to give a book a grade, A, B, C, plus, minus,
I'd say probably a B plus,
B plus.
because it's not perfect. No book can really be perfect, but
B plus is a great
It's gonna
grade.
be based off of sequels definitely.
yeah,
Because I mean it leaves
sequels
Yeah.
definitely have an
it leaves
Yeah.
it leaves a lot
effect
of
on
loose ends. So I mean if those are tied up, it's a fantastic book. But I mean if I really don't like books where stuff's just left open. So I mean and there's a lot
So
of
you agree with the B
things.
plus then,
B plus, same, A minus, yeah, around there.
Hannah?
I'm gonna have to give it about an A minus, just because I think it was a really, I don't know, it was, for me personally, it was a really good kind of idea concept where, blind
not your
faith
usual
is a
book.
really interesting
unique.
concept to me, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to give it about an A minus or so.
Yeah, I'd probably give it an A minus because I got really, really frustrated with the characters. But that's good because that means you're invested
You
in
only
them.
get frustrated with characters you love.
Yeah, I mean, And
Antique.
That means they're like real people. I mean, if you
Come on.
can't get
Yeah.
frustrated with a fake person,
'cause
that means they're real.
I really connected with Kieran because one, he was afraid of heights, and I'm afraid of heights. So right off the bat, I was connected to him in that fashion, and I got so angry at him sometimes when he'd just make these stupid mistakes. I'm like, no, don't do that. But it's good because I really wanted him to succeed, and I cared about these characters.
Well, we have to end the book discussion, but if you're interested in this book, it's called The Path to the Sun by Kimberli Bindschatel, Northern Michigan writer. And you can buy it at your local Brilliant Books in Traverse City, Michigan, or Amazon.com. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No problem.